Your rig is a beautiful recipe. Foods are funny. Chili is another one of those things. You can tell where somebody's from if they tell you if there's beans in the chili or no beans in the chili.
The Know Your Gear podcast.
Hey, Phil, throwback pickups on podcast did the guitar argument this week. Theirs was, what is the best tonal qualities? A hand-wound pickup or a machine-wound? Or does it really matter? Thoughts? I don't think it doesn't matter in a comparative. It matters in... So what I mean by that is, if you take everything to account, like we're going to use the same magnet, the same wire, the same exact amount of winds, the same bobbins, and I guess if you machine make that versus hand make that, there'll be a variance in sound, but the variances are going to be very small, but they'll be there. But I don't really have if you notice, I don't really have an angle that says like, oh man, hand wired's the right way to do it, or anything like that. I think that really, there's attributes. That's kind of the way I want to look at it. There's attributes to pickups that I like and I dislike. And that has changed for me over the years. I used to actually like pickups that were darker and they were able to make my playing, it was better because of the fact that the nuances weren't there, so I didn't have to worry so much. And now I like pickups that are more clear. I like it when I strum all the strings and I feel like I don't hear a huge EQ curve in the strings. I like hearing, a more even sound, and that's something I'm drawn to. So there's pickups that draw me to that. But the problem is to say that there's one great pickup or there's one way to make one great pickup is silly because of the fact that, like I said, I think the guitar picks the pickups just like it picks the strings. It's an equation. It's a beautiful recipe. That's what I think it is, and I'll always think that your rig is a beautiful recipe. And I look at people's rigs, I look at players' rigs the way I would think I would go to a chili cook-off and experience 30 different people taking essentially the same ingredients, beans and chili and and water and putting together all of these things that are realistically, for the most part, taste the same. Chili is for the most part, it's going to taste the same until they get out there in the extremities of the flavors. But just the subtleties and why this heat hits in the front and this heat hits in the back, and this has a sweet heat to it, and this has more of a sting to it, and this has a mellower, burn. And as silly as that sounds, taking the same ingredients and watching how somebody can come up with a different variation just by changing the percentages or just adding a few things. That's how rigs are. Because again, we always have to acknowledge the fact that it's everything. It's your style. It's the way you play. It's the gear, and it's the choices that you made with that gear. It's that amp works well with this pickup, and this pickup works well with this type of guitar, and these strings work well with that, and they work well with you. So I think that's what it always is going to come down to. And I love it because I think that's the answer. The problem is that answer doesn't work for the internet. The internet needs, like I always say, quantifiable. This is the sound. If you just do this, it's the sound. This one thing, this is how it's going to change everything. And every time somebody talks like that, the one surefire thing that's going to make something be the way it is, the more I feel like I recoil from that logic because I've not seen it to be true. James says, if there's no beans and no chili. Yeah, what? See, you could tell where foods are funny. Chili is another one of those things. You can tell where somebody's from if they tell you if there's beans in the chili or no beans in the chili. Michael says, hey, did you see the chili cook-off where the guy bought Wendy's chili and was going to win 4th place? No, I didn't see that, but that's awesome. That's fantastic. Not because he's cheating, just the irony of that. That is that's the counter argument to my argument, where I talk about the nuances and all the things like being a connoisseur of chili, and then essentially, it's like having like, what's the best burger in the world? It's like, it's McDonald's. There's a little bit of like, we're a little full of ourselves too. There's that too, for sure. And that's why I said, so that's the counter argument to my argument. That's great. I love it, which is, yes, I think all the little things add up and make something special. And then also, I think we get a little too much in the weeds, a little too full of ourselves, and a little too preoccupied with the things that don't matter, for sure. So, Shauna asked me a great question. I don't know which one of you asked it, but it came through Patreon, and Patreon was asking a question, and Shauna fields a lot of those questions to me. As I said, the Patreon, they'll come through and she'll ask me usually while I'm doing something, and she'll go, hey, here's a question, give me the answer. And I give her the answer, and then she relays the answer back to you guys. And it's really cool that she does that for me. And she'll answer a lot of them too, because she's obviously very skilled, so she can answer a lot of stuff. But the question in particular she wanted to know was, do I think Mogami cables are worth it, or are they like, is it a trick? And I said, I think Mogami cables are fantastic. I think they're great quality. I said, but I've said this before. I don't think I've ever, of course I have. I have not bought a guitar cable for the most part. I think I bought a couple of DiMarzio cables because they were pink and green. I wanted to try them out last year. I'm trying to think now of some exceptions. With very few exceptions, I have not bought cables in almost 15 to 20 years because I was a store owner, and guitar cable companies would bring the store cable samples all the time to sell you cables because they want you to sell them to your customers. So they'd bring me cables, and I would just have cables. And then when I didn't do that, I obviously am a YouTuber now, and cables companies will send you, Klotz Cable sent me cables like in 2020 or 2021, and that's still what I'm using for the most part, is these Klotz cables. Shout out to Klotz, with the breakers on them. And these are Neutrik ends, and then the cable itself is branded Klotz. It says Klotz on there. And these will look a lot like the Mogamis because they're using the Neutrik ends too. So very expensive cables, and they sent me a bunch, and I've been using them because very rarely in my experience, the cables go bad. Usually what happens is they get stolen. Cables get lost and stolen worse than guitar picks. If you're a gigging musician, cables are going to disappear. And so when I used to play out, I would buy cables because you'd get home and do your inventory and go, my microphone cables are gone. Right? They're loaded in somebody else's car. And, obviously playing from home and doing YouTube, there's not as many opportunities to lose my cables. So I have them. But my favorite cables, and I looked and I was a little shell shocked with the pricing. It's still the American made cables that D'Addario makes. I think they call them American Pro cables or something like that. I think they're very good for the money, although they are, I showed Shauna, they're 4 times more than what we used to sell them for in our store. So definitely the market has changed. But the point of the question was, when somebody was asking this, is always like, these fancy cables, like, you got to plug the cable in a certain direction. I remember I got a cable from a company, and it was like a 20-foot cable, and it was like $150 for this cable back then. So now it would be a $300 cable, and you had to use the right side. Like, this had to be coming from the guitar, and this had to be going to the amp. It was a directional cable. And I remember when Vox amps came out with cables, and there was a cable specifically for bass guitar, there was a cable specifically for electric guitar, and a cable specifically for acoustic guitars that had transducer pickups. And we would try them, and we couldn't hear crap. We just couldn't hear. And here's what I remember about those cables. We sold all the electric guitar cables, and we had to blow out on discount all the bass and acoustic cables. So I think guitar cables sometimes is one of the things where you can expose the elitistness part of our brains, where we're just kind of picking at the smallest things that matter. So if you like this clip and you'd like to watch another one, you can click right here. And if you want to see the entire episode of the podcast, you can click right there. As always, thank you for your time, and know your gear.